We identified 6 main stages of maturity that we see companies going through when they're trying to get their digital transformation efforts on board. Let's go through these phases first, and then I'll walk you through what departments you'll see the impacts emerge in, a few examples, and then we'll get into that first worksheet activity. So as I'm going through these, try to think about where your organization might currently sit and where you're seeing some of the impacts already emerge, okay? Phase 1. This is by far the phase that I see the majority of companies with, that I work with. Phase 1 is business as usual. At this point, you're operating against the status quo, and the adage of it is, isn't broke, don't fix it. Right? So you're thinking that, well, I mean, our margins are pretty good right now. We're achieving pretty good operational efficiencies. Our products work. Companies are still buying them. We're not really seeing sales go down very much, so why would we change? So this is that stagnancy state before you are disrupted by new consumer trends that apply to both B2B and B2C. Phase 2 then is present and active. And I would bet that a lot of you in this room are the change agents at your company. That's why you're here, right? So this is where I start to see little pockets of experimentation emerge throughout the company. So you might have someone in e-commerce who has a really good idea they want to get off the ground in terms of how to make cashless restaurants come to fruition. Or you might have something where you want to use AR/VR in order to plan a new kitchen at a restaurant. And so these are where these small pockets of experimentation really start to come to life, but they don't really have any support yet. Phase 3 then is the formalization, where the change agents seek that executive support. This is when resources come into play. A lot of times in phase 2, present and active, it's just the manager level usually, or maybe a senior manager, but it's not really executive support yet. There's not a lot of dollars. It's more of that experimental budget for innovation. Whereas in stage 3, these initiatives become bolder and executives start being brought to the table. Stage 4, strategic. This is where I was telling you about how business strategy and digital strategy have to be one and the same. It becomes incredibly clear in the strategic phase because this is where all the metrics and goals start to align among departments. So you shouldn't operate digital transformation in a vacuum. It can't be led just by marketing or just by IT, which are the 2 groups that I see usually running it most often, without involving anyone else. It has to be strategic in its approach. Stage 5, this is where convergence comes in, where the communication and the collaboration really begins. At this phase, we'll start to see innovation and digital teams emerge and be at full force, as well as digital centers of excellence. And I'll talk through an example at a company, W.L. Gore, in a bit here about a digital center of excellence. And tomorrow on the morning panel, we also have a company that will be discussing this as well. But a center of excellence pulls the best and brightest leaders from multiple departments and brings them to the table to ensure that strategy is maintained across every department and we're all singing the same song, right? You don't want multiple strategies and then the KPIs associated with them competing, right? You want all the resources going toward the same overarching goals. Finally, innovative and adaptive. There are very, very few companies that I would say are at this phase, even some of the BMS that we all know, where you get to this final phase of maturity where you're involving every department, you have the right hires, you have the right resources in place, programs are going, but then what? A lot of times what I see is companies go back to the feeling of phase 1 almost, right? They say, okay, we did a great job, we transformed. Well, in reality, new technologies are always coming out that are inspiring new consumer trends and behaviors that you have to keep innovating.